Hey, I hope you got your shoes on and you are ready for a power walk, because that is what I want to bring today. I want to talk about power. I want to get into some passion. I want to ignite a little bit of rage. I want to tell you some things that have pissed me off recently and have changed me. I'm going to share a bit about my labor stories with both my girls and how it's inspired me to become an activist and make this decision that is for you if you are a mom, is for you if you are a mom in any kind of form. You might not have kids yet, you might have fur babies, you might be the mother of a business or a big idea, you might be a business owner who really feels stuck in some regard to trying to figure out and pave your own way and not exactly knowing how to have the bravery, the voice, the skills to figure out what that way is. And if you have figured it out and you know what it is, but you're still playing a little bit small and not doing it fully, not trusting yourself, not listening to your way of doing things and then implementing that, whether it be in your parenting, whether it be for yourself, whether it be in your relationship and how you choose a lover or engage with your lover, whether that be in your business and how you actually grow it, run it, decide what to do with it. So I want to tell you this, something that has come up for me through the experience of being pregnant, having my baby girls, and running a business, and how it's inspired me to change, especially recently, the labor story and birth of my daughter Autumn. I've made a decision that I will not raise my daughters to live in a cage. I refuse to cut down their vastness in order to lure them into fitting in a tiny box. And I've made the same decision about my business too. I no longer want to try to run it, grow it, use my passion and my gifts, bring my purpose into the world by trying to do it in a way and looking to others for the way to do it. I believe we choose our mama's womb. Let me say that first of all. And I believe our businesses, the soul of them, choose us. And I'm certain that I chose my mama, and I am certain that my business chose me. You know, it wasn't safe in my mama's womb. My soul knew what she was getting into. My body and the cell memories and the traumas I would need to live my purpose started right then and there in my mama's womb. And it wasn't fair. I didn't get a choice. I don't want these drugs in my blood. I don't want the pain of his violent blows to your body and mine. I don't want this insecurity and disempowerment and fearful thoughts. And I wish I could trust you enough to keep me safe, but I can't, so I've got to figure this out. That's what my little baby body learned in my mama's womb, and I feel it in my cells. And I've discovered this and uncovered this through years of healing and leading thousands of women over the past few years to their own healing so that they could truly lead authentically. And the lie of authority says that you need someone to guide and validate your safety, your worth, and your choices. And if you really want to mess up your life, then never question authority. The authorities that are assigned to you, or the ones that you really, really want, and I do mean really want to trust and surrender to. What I mean by that is your parents. I think because I came into my mama's womb, I learned from the second I was here that your authorities are not perfect, that your authorities don't have it all figured out, that you may be smaller, seemingly incapable, but in truth, when you look inside, when you're invited to, when you allow yourself to, when you give yourself permission and empower yourself to, you'll find that there is no authority greater than the one within yourself and what can come through you. So this can be your parents, this could be your doctor, this could be your lover, this could be the president, or some guru that you made into an authority figure. And like I said, I think it's taken me a while to extend what I learned about my mama not being the best authority over me from the moment that I became, to then take that into other areas of my life, like doctors, like lovers, like running my business when I thought I knew nothing about running a business, looking to others to tell me how. So I had a moment that really changed things for me when it comes to thinking about the trust of how I'm going to raise my girls and make decisions as their mama bear. And it started when I was 38 weeks pregnant with Violet, and I was sitting on the table in the gynecologist with my midwives, and the doctor came in and said, today your baby's breech. This is a big issue because it means you might not be able to have a natural labor, and you also need to get the DTaP vaccine so that your child will be free from whooping cough. And I had this moment for the first time in my life where I was feeling that feeling you have when you are looking to authorities and starting to feel small and just, okay, this is what you say, so I'm going to listen to you, while everything in me was starting to burn with rage and with frustration and with a deeper knowing that I have been really conscious lately about what I'm putting into my body, and I have been really conscious lately about my beliefs and what's possible for my birth. And if I'm being, for the first time in my life, super cautious about reading the labels on my food, then I should also be cautious about what I'm going to consider injecting into my body and bloodstream that's going to go straight to my baby. And instead of just listening to the authority of the doctor, I took a minute and I said, you know what, I need to actually go home and research this and better understand the reason why, the ingredients in this vaccine, the risks of my decision, the options that are available to me. And the other thing I really felt true is I need to tune into my baby, because this is her body too. And I'm not the authority over her. And I made a decision right then and there. I'm not going to force my baby to do things before she has a voice. I'm going to teach her to have a voice, and I'm going to establish that relationship right now. And it started with using my intuition and my body's wisdom to feel and sense and decide from there. Now, that's not something I was used to doing. First of all, eating healthy and reading labels was a big stretch for me, let alone starting to stand up to my doctor and question what they told me to do, and then to trust myself to know how to research accurately and find the right information. And as you can imagine, if you've ever heard anybody talk about vaccines, it's such a controversial topic. We're not really, what I discovered, allowed to ask about this. If you do, you are condemned by people around you. You are told that you are a crazy person. You are labeled an anti-vaxxer if you don't do what you're told. Something about this, as I was questioning authority, did not feel good to me. Everything in my body was saying, you know what? This is not right. This is not how we are meant to live. And this is why so many things are broken. And I decided to switch doctors at 38 weeks to a more holistic practice. So actually, I said before, I was at my gynecologist. I switched over to midwives at that place. A more holistic practice with women who empower you in your birth and allowed you to ask questions, allowed you and encouraged you to tune into your intuition, allowed you and encouraged you to feel confidence about having the birth experience that you want instead of pumping you with fear. And it was beautiful. My Violet switched at the last minute. We were able to have a natural labor. And when she was born, she was 5 pounds, 4 ounces, the tiniest little thing. I had passed over the research to Brent, my husband, because it felt overwhelming with everything else I was doing in regards to vaccines. And he actually made the decision that the initial vaccines, we weren't going to do all of them. we discovered that there were some really unnecessary vaccines that don't have any reason to do them. For example, hepatitis B, that can only be contracted by a dirty needle or if the parent has it. Well, our little 5-pound infant baby is not going to be around any needles, so the risk of that is, in our mind, 0%. And then there was another one, this goop that you have to rub on their eyes the second they come into the world, that can only be contracted if you have chlamydia, which I had been tested for during pregnancy and my husband as well. So there was no chance of that. Now, this was doing my own initial research. It was our first decision and we paused there. We decided we would wait and do more research and figure out which vaccines we would want to do afterward as she grew. So this was okay for a while. And then we had Autumn. The labor for Autumn was one of the most training experiences of my life. She was supposed to come on September 21st, the autumn equinox, and she was now a week and a half late. What started to happen was I had carved out so much time. As you guys know, if you listened to last season of the podcast, I had finished everything in my life to establish myself the space to go into labor and have maternity leave. And I had started and planned for it to be on the 21st. So incoming control issues when she wasn't ready to come. And the other thing that was intense about this is that if you read about it and you look up, it'll tell you that it kind of makes you feel like something's wrong. Like if you're not having your baby on this due date that you were given, that, something's off and it may not end well. And so, again, I was undulating between this fear of trusting my body and trusting the authorities. The other thing that happened at this time is the doctor told me I had tested positive for strep B. Now, that means you have to get antibiotics pumped into you before the baby comes out, or there's a very small risk of getting an infection that can be deadly. So again, I was like, okay, I know now after having my first daughter that antibiotics are not great to give because they affect the gut biome and they can cause a lot of issues. And so I said, okay, before I make this decision, I want to go do some research and understand what that means. And when I said this, my doctors were like, you are crazy. Why would you want to do research? You just need to do it. Why would you put your baby at risk? And again, I felt that anger and that rage and that feeling of, why am I not allowed to question? Why am I not allowed to affirm a choice? It's not because I'm trying to go against you. It's because I'm trying to give myself permission to listen and to give myself space to make the right decisions and not force things that I might regret later. And so I did, and as I read, I saw a lot of new research about gut biome and how starting the baby off by killing this off with antibiotics is actually what may be causing what people call colic babies, who cry and scream and are in pain, and that up until that point had no understanding of why and just was labeled a normal kind of roll the dice thing. And I thought, well, shit, I really don't want to have that experience. I'm already nervous about having a 4-year-old and running a big business and bringing another baby into the mix. I don't want to do anything that might make that baby an uncomfortable, unhappy, intense experience. And I felt everything in my intuition said, it's going to be okay. You don't need these antibiotics. Your body is healthy. You don't need to be a part of this protocol that's like a blanket protocol for all to remove the risk from the doctors when they don't know uniquely for you. So there's a lot of information about strep B where it's like, it's just a bacteria that lives in your body. It comes and goes. So you might have it one day and not have it the next. So the testing is really weird because you get tested a month before going into labor and then you're supposed to just do this protocol, which most people would be like, fine, what's the big deal? I'll take antibiotics. But But it is a big deal for your health and for your babies when you actually look into it. And so I wanted to make the decision not to do it, but I felt too scared, and I did it anyways. And what happened after that is Autumn was cool for a few weeks. When she came out, it was peaceful and beautiful. And then something changed, and every day around 4 p.m., at about 5 weeks old, she would start screaming and crying in pain. And my husband and I would spend the entire night, starting from 4 p.m. until about 4 a.m., holding her and trying to comfort her, looking in her eyes and seeing that she was in pain, that she was suffering, staring back at me like, Mama, help me. Mama, fix this. And it was so intense, I can't even explain to you the intensity. It's like fingernails rubbing on a chalkboard for hours and hours. And I had this feeling like this is what I knew in my gut not to do. And I did it anyways, and now the worst case scenarios happened. And I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust my intuition. And it was even worse when we would go to our doctors, and those same doctors that told us that it wasn't going to happen that way are the same ones that were like, oh, your baby just has colic. It's normal. We can't explain why. We're not sure what to do. It'll go away in 6 months to a year on average. When I tell you that brought me to my knees crying on the bathroom floor, because we could barely survive another day, Brent and I, let alone 6 months to a year. So I made a decision in that moment that I'm not going to listen to these people, and I'm going to figure out, use my intuition, and find a solution to this problem. And I spent the next 3 months putting all my money, all my time, all my effort, all my skills into learning and researching how I was going to help my baby end this pain and understand better what reflux was and what a colic baby really meant and what was causing it without the help of experts. I was going to become an expert in something I had no understanding of. And that's what I did, and I was able to find so much support from holistic resources online and from other empowered mamas who too were not willing to just listen to the authorities and carve a different way. So I met with lactation consultants. I had a special surgery to remove a tongue tie, lip tie, cheek tie for her. I had to do an elimination diet that I'm still on to this day, removing eggs, gluten, dairy, soy, corn, nuts, and a whole bunch of other specific things. I spent thousands of dollars on special practitioners who empower you and who also do up-to-date research. And I'm so happy to say I'm walking right now with my happy, healthy little 5-month-old, and together we figured it out. There were moments where I looked her in her eyes and said, what's this about, baby girl? What is this soul contract that you've chosen for us? Why this way? And I tell you, she looked back to me and she said, Mama, we are going to figure things out together. We're going to pave a new way, and we're going to be the authorities of our own lives. And around all of this time, a month or so ago, there's a law that is coming into vote. It's a bill, 5044. It's a bill that would remove a parent's rights to a public education if their kids don't have the full vaccine schedule. That means every single vaccine from the moment they were born, no matter your individual child's health or needs. A lot of those are not covered under the medical exemption. Currently, the only way is through a religious exemption, which allows you to say, and choose your own vaccine path. And they are trying to pass this bill in my state right now. And with Autumn, we made the same decision as Violet not to vaccinate her. And her doctors, not to give her all the vaccines, and her doctors have actually advised us that she is at high risk for a vaccine injury because of her body sensitivity and all the challenges that we've uncovered over the last few months. So we may never be able to fully vaccinate her. But these kind of reactions are not covered under the medical exemption. The only thing that's covered is if they have a literal seizure from receiving a vaccine. And I just can't understand how, as a society, we would allow the government to take a one-size approach fits all to a toxic ingredients that are created by big pharmaceutical companies who make money off of them, who are completely exempt if there are any injury or challenges, to allow the government to mandate that we must, on their terms, to every child, no matter their individual needs, inject this without any parental consent. Then I learned that there are laws like this passing all around. Consider even vaccines like the HPV vaccine, which has been proven in court that the research was falsified. It does not and never has cured cancer, and it has caused major adverse effects because of the aluminum, mercury, and binding agents that allows aluminum to break the blood-brain barrier and get into the brain. This is true with other vaccines too. So this is not a podcast about vaccines today. It's about authority. It's about the way that we grant teachers or the government or influencers power over our decisions. It's the way that we are taught to be put in a cage and in a box, to fit in, to be quiet, to be good, to listen. We're not allowed to question. We're not allowed to pave our own way because it's not safe. And I want to call bullshit on that, because now I understand why I chose my mama and why we had such a challenging relationship my whole life. Because through her, I learned to ask questions. Through her, I learned that sometimes the safety we need has to be sourced from within and not provided for us by people who are people just like us, who are messy, who make mistakes, who get controlled by power and greed, who don't have the answers, who can't figure it all out. And especially our government. I am not passing off this shitty ass system that's outdated and patriarchal and old to discern and decide the health of my little babies' lives. And I can't believe so many people just show up to their brainwashed doctors, who are just people too, who had about a day of study on this thing, and don't ask any questions and just allow themselves to inject these things into their babies without doing their own research and making their own decision. If you've done that, I am not making you wrong. I am not trying to shame you. I'm not even saying that my choice is the right choice. It's not black or white. It's a massive in-between issue that is so nuanced. But the thing is, we have to trust each other in sisterhood to be able to talk about these things. We have to be able to educate each other. We have to be allowed to explore and make our own decisions. And we must encourage each other to think for ourselves. This is how people get into huge trouble with authority figures. This is how we lose ourselves and our future, when we are just quiet and meek and don't allow ourselves to recognize the nuances. So if you are well-resourced, and this is why I love and have devoted myself to life coaching and life coach training, because if you know what a life coach really is, what a life coach actually is supposed to do is ask powerful questions. A life coach is not an authority. A life coach is not a person who has it all figured out. A life coach is a person who says, I'm going to ask deeper questions, break myself out of the box, walk my talk in that way, then get educated and trained to help people find their own wisdom within and do the same. This is why I love and appreciate people who devote themselves to holistic practices and who learn about things like neuro-linguistics programming and get coach training, because it helps you to open your mind and ask powerful questions. It helps you to make decisions that are unique to you. It helps you to figure out who you really are and the way that you really want to live from a place of your own innovation and discernment. You know, because my mother's womb wasn't a safe space, I started out very young seeking out personal development, self-discovery, and trying to figure out how to create a life that I knew wasn't going to be handed to me. And because of that journey and that devotion to years and years now of investing in training and studying the mind and the body and the spirit and the soul and the reason and the resources, I went through this journey to figuring out where will I get nurturing and support and safety from, which led me to personal development and discovering that you can source that from within. You can source that from community, ultimately leading me to sisterhood. And it wasn't until I really went into that I discovered, wow, I don't want to be in the box of a career that's just to make money. I actually want to do something I'm passionate about, because when you do work that you're passionate about, you can support yourself on all levels. Financially, being able to thrive because you're doing work that you love, and having the freedom to live a fulfilled life, which had me create my own business and ultimately devote myself to this passion I have for having your own resourcefulness internally, intrinsically with your mind and your body, and externally in the way you take action and live your life. And that led me to going through my labor and pregnancies differently, asking deeper questions. If I was going to step out of the box and authority figures, from breaking down that 9-to-5 mortgage job I used to have and leaving even my career to become an actress and a Broadway star because I wanted that sense of say in how I live my life and how I bring success to myself, then I was going to do the same in what people say is possible in pregnancy and labor and becoming a mom. And ultimately getting featured on the front page of the New York Times because of having a successful life coaching business and helping other women to become successful in these modalities and to help others and heal others through their work. I also saw that the media is not something you can trust, because that same media used my story to switch it into a compelling tagline and subject that would cause fear and reaction, that from the moment my business started, I knew the media is not something to trust. And by knowing that, that had me really start to break down authority figures all over my life. But it doesn't mean that I always know where to look. It doesn't mean that as a mom, I trusted my gut when researching and science and the medical field is not my expertise. It's not an easy road to question authority. Do I wish that I could just numb out and simplify my life by just showing up, not having to do the hard work? Sometimes, yeah, because it's grueling. There are those moments where you're crying on your bathroom floor because you don't know if you're going to be able to pull through. You don't know if you're making the right decisions. You don't know if you're going to be able to survive outside of the box, not fitting into what everybody else does and what everybody else is doing. And that's been the challenge for me, especially lately, getting into discovering what's really happening with our government and the way they make laws and the intention and the meaning behind some of these things that they are putting into place, knowing that these conspiracy theories that you hear about when, if you're like me, you numbed out from wanting to know what's going on. Actually, there is corruption. There are people that are so fearful they fall into, big pharmaceutical companies fall into needing to make billions and billions more, and what they're willing to do to get there is frightening. And it's why we all have to think for ourselves. It's why, if we're well-resourced and able to think for ourselves and we know something, we can't be fearful and quiet, and we have to speak up and we have to create change. A lot has shifted for me too with my mom passing away, literally dying alone on her living room floor and not being able to know why, because the health system and her doctors and her addiction and there being no support for these things failed her. It's driven me to ask more questions and to take deeper care of myself and my children. And I've had to figure out a lot of things, because as this bill has come into play, that literally would say, though I pay taxes, lots of taxes, by the way, because I make a lot of money doing work that I love, that my children are not allowed to go to public school, private school, and our only option would be to homeschool. Why? Because we're willing to do the research and even look at the science and the medical doctors who are coming out and saying there is something to be concerned about here. And yet so many people in America and across the world are silently just listening and not posing the question. And there are questions, valuable questions. It's not crazy anti-vaxxers or, crazy pro-vaccine. We need to take care of our culture. We need to eradicate these diseases. But the truth is, it's not black and white like we're talking about, and we need to talk about it more. So in the process, I've asked myself, knowing what I know, doing the research that I've done, seeing what's happening, am I just going to sit back and wait around for this to go down? And the answer was no. So despite going through everything I was going through with Autumn and getting back into doing my business, being a mom of two, and having truly a lot of reasons to say, I'm too stressed out, it's too much, I can't handle it, it would break my heart to get too involved in this, I gave myself no choice but to get politically involved, to become an activist. And what I've started to see and understand is that a lot of my life has been leading me to this work. I held an event for all the moms and dads across Connecticut who had to make a choice for themselves, either to not vaccinate, partially vaccinate, or who are pro-vaccine but are not okay with the government making choices regardless of the fact that they already do the full schedule. And we talked about this and joined an activist group together. I had 30 people show up. I was able to lead that room into taking clear action, having just figured it all out for myself. I did not know how to know who your legislators are. I didn't know what a constituent is. I can't even say the word. I didn't know what the difference between a representative and a senator was. I'd never voted locally for these people. I really don't know the difference between all the values of a Republican and a Democrat. I have told myself that I don't have the capacity to open my heart to these issues and these things in the past because life in itself was overwhelming. But what I've learned now, after 10 years of seeking out education and training on the mindset and stepping outside of the box in so many forms in my life, and then training hundreds and thousands of other women to do that around the world, training them literally on these life coaching skills, tools, and techniques, I have learned how to step out of the box. I have learned how to lead. I have learned how to think for myself. I have learned how to get over the fear of being seen. I have learned how to get clear in my communication. I've learned how to take action even when it feels hard. And even when I feel like I don't have the time or the money or insert any excuse. I know how to work through excuses. I know how to get into action. I know how to do that for other people too. So I've learned how to figure out who your legislator is. I've learned to look at the current bills that are up for vote and how they'll impact our society. I learned everything about this bill and how we can work. I learned that a lobbyist is actually someone who sits in the lobby at the Capitol and just talks to reps and senators to help them change their mind and make the right vote. I've learned that you can email them and call them, and they have coffee hours, and you can meet with them and talk with them and share your views and your reasons why. And I've learned that all these representatives and senators that are voting on this bill that will disrupt my lives and the lives of so hundreds and thousands of families in Connecticut, and these bills are passing around the world, they don't know anything about their research. They're mostly just voting with their team, voting with the Dems and voting with the reps, but they can be swayed, they can be educated, they will listen if they are truly good people and not corrupt. And you know what I've learned? There are both. There are corrupt people who have run for the power and who don't give a shit about the point that their job is actually to represent you, to listen to you, to understand how these bills and these laws affects people's lives. I now understand something about white privilege that I never understood before. As I sat in a circle this last Sunday to hold not an action meeting like the one I did before, but one of healing. Because what I saw is these moms, anti-vaxxers and pro-vaxxers, are scared to speak. They are scared of what's happening. They are scared to talk about what they know or what they don't know. They are scared to explore their choices deeper. And so I held a circle to heal, for us to be able to come together in sisterhood. A group of women, 10 women showed up to talk about our fears. And what I heard in that circle was so disturbing. Women who feel literally like they have even read articles that say because their child either cannot have the full vaccine schedule or they do believe there's harm in doing it, and until the vaccines are made safe and proven safe, which they are not, if you do your research, there are no studies that prove that vaccines are fully safe, that they don't cause asthma, autoimmune disorders, and even the very controversial topic of autism. There are connections in some ways to the blood-brain barrier being passed and harm and even death that is logged because of vaccines. And these women are fearful that they will be put in concentration camps and separated from society, which is already happening in some form, where their children are not allowed to not only go to public school, but any school, private school or sports locally. Why is it okay when there is no public health crisis, when there is no compromise for an unvaccinated child who is healthy, could not cause any harm to society, when you look into the understanding of herd immunity and what's happening, why this has to happen with children? Okay, I'm not going to make this about the vaccines, but it's just this topic that's controversial. And in the group, there were women that finally said, wow, I didn't realize all of these rights were being taken away from you. I fully vaccinate my kids, but I'm not down with that. It's not okay that the government's allowed to do that. And it's only the beginning. Once a law like this passes, it may not be in something that harms you, but it will in the future as you give away your rights in this way. And this is the same thing that has happened to so many different cultures and segregated people with different beliefs, skin colors, ways of being. And it wasn't until I was put in this minority group that I fully could understand and be willing to fight. And it has opened my mind and my heart in a way that I can never, ever be undone. And I realize our voice does matter. It does. I have personally talked to representatives and educated them and shared scientific research and opened their mind and forced them to look at things. And that has helped them to understand and vote differently, even vote outside of their team, which is very often unheard of. We can break the authority system by standing up and having our own voice. Is it easy work? Absolutely not. I remember I was listening to this book right now that I love. I encourage everybody to go get it and listen to it. It's called Untamed by Glennon Doyle. She shares a story about sitting in church at Sunday school, and when they were finally going to tell the story of Adam and Eve and how were we created, she talks about sitting in the front row and feeling so excited to hear the story as the teacher, who is literally a accountant who is volunteering to teach the Bible studies on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m., go into detail about Adam and Eve, the story that tells us that women are created from the rib of a man, and that the job of the woman is to bring pleasure and entertainment and support to the man. And that they lived in this garden called Eden, and they were told it's a sin to eat the apple. The woman eats the apple. It's because she ate the apple and stepped out of line and broke the rules that we forever are now living in sin and suffering. And when I heard that, I remembered the reason why religion felt off to me. And that was one of them. As a very little girl, I too remember being curious and excited to hear that story. And then feeling like, is it really so fucking bad to eat the apple? I don't think so. And as people started to interpret, these authorities interpreted their meaning of these words in a Bible and told us to live our lives based off their different interpretation, seeing that every religion has a slightly different interpretation, that it's all a bunch of people trying to make authority over their understanding, their messiness, their wounds, their desires, their control, their manipulation, their inability to speak and think for themselves and connect to source energy through themselves. And there was some of that, of course, in organized religion, but there was a lot of disruption. And that's really what we have to be thinking about and allowing ourselves to recognize. And I will not raise my girls to feel like they have to fit into these little boxes and lose the light and the love and the magic that they are and that I see. You know, what is it like to go through life thinking you're never good enough? You know, because you're probably doing it right now. Because if you are fearful, if you're a self-obsessed fixer, if you're a control freak like me, if you're always growth-oriented like I was, if you're always looking for new and bigger goals and constantly seeking outside yourself for the answers or the way to do something, then you are probably living in that vicious cycle of never good enough that we're taught, because from the beginning we're told we have to follow these rules, we have to fit into this box, this is the only way to do it. And we know it's not right, and that's why I love coaching. That's why I love tools and mottos and neurolinguistics programming and identity understanding of how we are formed to fit in groups and why we must break free. You were born an authority. You've just been trained to listen outside of you. You were born unapologetic about your needs, naturally cute enough to get what you want and manifest it and magnetize it toward you. I know this little baby in front of me, what I wouldn't do for her, and what she naturally knows how to do to feed herself, and how she naturally knows how to get what she needs because she's authentically in alignment with that. That's the universe for you. Just like my innate desire to give her and support her and love her and keep her on track with life and thriving is what the universe wants for you. You've just been trained to want something you don't actually need. And that's why you're not getting it. Your mama knows better than that. Your mama meaning universal source love, energy, God, whatever you want to call it. Before you even knew how to keep focus, before you knew how to stay awake, before you knew how to feed yourself, you were born and held and supported knowing what to do. You were born with full rights. You are powerful. Your body, your wisdom, your experience, all of it is unique and necessary and part of the whole. And you are influential. And you've got to eliminate the fear and break the shackles and come out of the cage and pull your ideas and your real dreams out of the box. And this challenge with this decision that my husband and I are navigating and what's happening in our country with these laws have awakened that in me, have helped me to understand that I've got to come out of this cage and stop being afraid to talk about things. And I've got to let everyone know that while you want to, that I want to experience the full circle of life, and I want you to not be told how to do it, but to trust your own way, to source your path, your health, your vitality from your own internal compass. There's no way that the government or our culture or our society can know what's actually best for us. There's no way that we can create one system, one law, one way of being that actually tunes in and is into the unique needs and quality of life that's necessary for every single little human being. The wisdom usually holds and transcends opposing points of view. It's never going to be black or white. If you source your path, your health, your vitality from your own internal compass, you'll recognize true wisdom usually and always transcends opposing points of view. It's never black or white. You got to learn to comfortably hold paradox, and then we'll be okay. If we can do that. If you can, one, trust yourself and at the same time selflessly lean into the world and what it's asking of you that's in the highest good for all. If you can, two, have boundaries that are stern and strong and fierce and fiery, but also be flexible. If you can, three, compromise and at the same time embody your full range of value without wavering. If you can, four, learn the rules and why they were made and then honor their foundation while fine-tuning them from your own sense of wisdom. If you can 5, listen so deeply, and then speak up. If you can 6, keep your eye on the bullseye, then close your eyes and let the path emerge, and let go of the target and know that you'll make your way there. If you can 7, be human and be magic. If you can 8, know what is real and stick with it, and then fall the hell out of line when you feel it. If you can 9, know what you want and then be open and easy to accommodate, even if it's not exactly and perfectly the way you expected it. If you can release your expectations. If you can finally 10, follow your heart, but track your thoughts and know the facts. We have got to stop listening and trusting authorities without asking ourselves and without recognizing that they are always imperfectly imperfect, never right, never black or white. It's scary. It's scary to know that no one has the answer, that no one can tell you the perfect way to get there, but we can do hard things. We can do hard things when we talk about them together, when we go through the nuances, when we discover the in-between wisdom that holds both opposing views. I believe we can do that with this conversation about vaccines, with these laws that are trying to be passed. I believe we can find the way that honors both, but not if you're afraid, not if we're silent, and not if we don't take what we know and actually get involved. I want to leave for you a list of ways that you can get involved and active that I've learned from stepping the hell out of my comfort zone. And believe me, it has been a challenge to get here. There has been so much confusion and so much fear and so much doubt with whether or not I could actually be the kind of mother that I want to be. The kind of parenting that I'm doing requires slow, conscious thought, effort, and devotion. The kind of business that I'm running requires a lot of devotion too. And it felt like too much to take on stepping into what's happening in our country and in our culture. And you know what I've seen? We have to, because when we don't, we get fearfully caught up in the bullshit. It's even happening right now with the coronavirus. You have to remember the people who run the media, the people who invest in and pay for these news channels, this media, these papers to run are big pharmaceutical companies. So the people that are filling you with fear and doubt and making you feel desperate and out of control are the same people that are going to sell you the thing that's supposedly going to fix all your problems. And guess what? That thing that they're going to sell you, they're going to tell you is going to fix all your problems, it has side effects. It has other problems that come with it. And that's why we have to know what we're saying yes to. After having made that decision, being pregnant, taking those antibiotics, knowing everything in my being told me not to, doing it anyway, and then going through the shitstorm of healing my daughter, I made a vow to myself, I will never, never, never defy my intuition again. And I'm doing it in the most challenging ways, and I'm walking that path beside you. And I want to encourage you to listen and allow yourself to question authority, to trust yourself and your intuition and your ability to research, look at the facts, and then discern, like any good life coach would do who's professionally trained and understands that beliefs are not facts. We form beliefs every minute. We look around us in whatever's happening in our immediate sphere, and we'll say, okay, that's the truth. And sometimes we do that to protect ourselves. I had an argument with my mother-in-law because she kept sending me pro-vaccine articles, and she's very pro-vaccine and has a lot of fear about it, and her and my father-in-law have not wanted to support us by getting politically involved because they believe in the law. And I had to ask her to stop sending me the articles and tell her how frustrating and even annoying it was, because I'm not asking her to prove her point about why vaccines are relevant. I also am not asking her to just keep researching in the places that she's done and reading the articles that prove her point. I was asking her to do what I've done, which is check both sides of the equation, read and understand both, and then discern. The real question is, who has the right to tell us what to do and why? And who has the right and the ability, especially for our children, to know what's best for them, for their health, and for their safety? And can we trust that a government body, our government, the way it's currently run, are they equipped and fully 100% trustable and liable to make these choices? That's what I care about. That's the question that I have. And the answer is no. And if we want to see things change in our lives that actually really matter and over time will start to affect you more and more and your family more and more, you've got to find the way to use those things you understand. So many of you who are trained coaches and listening to this, or who are considering getting trained, do it, because you're going to need it to survive. You're going to need to understand how your mind works, how we form beliefs, what a fact actually is, and the truth about identities and authorities. And if you want to get past that core wound of never being good enough, it starts with believing that what you need is inside of you, and seeking the women in your life, the mentors in your life, the support systems in your life, the boundaries in your life, the actions in your life that are going to have you learn fully how to look in and trust what you hear and move with it, and how to go through that cycle. And if you get off track, if you fail, fix it and fine-tune that muscle of discernment, that muscle of self-sovereignty, and not just self-sovereignty, but societal sovereignty, sovereignty that says and asks what's in the highest good for all. That's where I'm at. That is what I'm looking for in my life. That's the way my business has changed since last season, giving myself the space to slow down, to not plan anything for this year. Well, now I'm seeing why. I have been listening to the signs. I've been communicating in this language of the universe that gives me signals and signs from my guides, from the universe, from my own internal soul, imprint, and purpose. And that listening is leading me toward a whole new life, a whole new way of being in my community, in taking action beyond just my business and serving and working with women, but taking that fully integrated into my motherhood and in my life and into making a difference in the world. And I want to fire you up. I want to wake you up. I want you to know that you're not here to learn coaching techniques and modalities and change your mindset just to heal yourself. You're not doing it just to have an awesome brand and an amazing business that makes a difference for the people that you serve. You're learning these things so you can change our fucking world. But you have got to admit that, establish that authority figures should be questioned, that the boxes should be broken out of, that you have to start trusting your own way and doing it despite the discomfort. And I am going to be here to walk beside you, and we're going to talk a lot about how to do that on this season. So we did a longer walk today, 52 minutes right now to be exact. I'm grateful to have you here. I'm grateful to have your trust to walk with me. I want to hear from you about your ideas, about your blocks, about how this feels as you navigate this. And I'm not the authority to tell you what to do. I'm the one to stand beside you. I'm the one to hold you up when it gets scary. And I'm the one to say you can do it. You can, no matter how hard it is, no matter how scary it is, you can. Thank you for walking beside me for today's episode. Thanks for letting me feel that fire and that passion and that rage. If you want to know more about life coaching, a great place to start is my self-discovery week. You'll start to see how having tools and techniques to question your mind and the way things work will wake you up, will make you feel more resourced, more strong and confident and aware of how you're being manipulated and controlled, and therefore feeling you're not good enough. The tools will help you to step out. You can find that at mentormasterclass.com. It's a whole full week training. I encourage you to take it if you haven't so far. If you're interested in activism work, if you want to learn how you can actually take these skills and get involved with something real in our country You can follow the link that I'll provide beneath this episode, where I'll be updating people in Connecticut on how you can fight HB 5044, this bill. It should be going into vote over the next week or two, so it's vital that you pay attention. If you're a Connecticut resident and you get involved, please DM me if you want to get involved and you want to help make sure that we keep our parental rights, our body autonomy, and our medical freedom intact, no matter what you believe about vaccines, no matter what choices you have so beautifully and boldly made for your family, either to vaccinate or not. If you believe that we should have a choice, get connected with me. Let's fight it. And if you just want to learn how we're doing it here, you can take this into any bill, any issue, anything coming up in your community and get more involved. Really, it feels powerful. It feels like being alive. And I highly, again, recommend reading the book Untamed by Glennon Doyle. It is really supporting me in all getting over the fear, getting over the bullshit, and getting alive and involved and fearlessly speaking what's true for me, despite the nuanced controversy of it all. I love you. I see you. I am you. And it's going to be a good season on the podcast. And holy crap, it's springtime and I am feeling good having walked an hour. I'm so happy the winter is ending and we are coming up into spring. Talk to you all next week. Can't wait.